Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It's of course that time of the week once again when the weekly challenges go ahead and refresh. In terms of this week, we have a brand new special event themed around update 1.57, and we also have the opportunity to grab a 6-star free car reward. Again, the best possible reward available for any of these weekly challenges. So here is an overview of March week 5. This will end on the 3rd of April 2025 at midnight. In terms of the events then, Sardinia Windmills Reverse will host the Jimny Cup. We then move into a brand new special event themed around update 1.57, and that is the Renault Kangoo 1 make over at Tsukuba Circuit. We then head over to Lake Major East layout for the European FR Challenge 550, of course one of the previous new events with 1.56, then over to Grand Valley Highway 1 with the WTC 900, and to finish its Circuit de St. Croix C layout for the Group 1 Prototype Series. In terms of your rewards this week, one event is a 6-star parts ticket, 3 events is 150k, and all 5 is a 6-star roulette ticket, free car reward. Let's get straight into it then with the first event of the week. This is the Jimny Cup at Sardinia Windmills Reverse, which means we are heading off-road. This was one of the original events added with the Jimny Cup menu book. Of course, in terms of the Jimny now though, we do have 2 choices of Jimny, the XC and the JC Sierra. And of course, my pick would be the Sierra. It is just the better of the 2. And I went for this nice little off-road Suzuki livery. So let's get into the event then. Super simple. Let's be honest, this is probably one of the easiest menu books we ever had. There's a total of 12 cars, 11 AI over a 2-lap sprint race here, of course at Sardinia Windmills. The only tricky part is if you don't enjoy the dirt driving in GT7, then you might find it a little bit tricky. As always, my events will be on the hardest difficulty and I'll stay as close to any PP recommendations as possible. So as for changes for the Jimny, the only thing I've done here is add the dirt tyres, which are of course required for this one. I've also put weight reduction on it as well as a racing exhaust. Apart from that, everything else is standard, including the tuning sheet itself, and I had absolutely no problem winning this event. Again, the AI very hit and miss when it comes to any of the rallying / dirt events, so really you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever here. Taking the lead in the late stages of the first lap, I would then carry on up the road to get a 15-second gap over P2 by the time we came up across the line. Honestly, a super simple, easy event here. The only issue you might have is if you don't like the dirt driving. Event number 1 then, done and dusted. 45,000 credits for this one with that clean race bonus. So unfortunately, still a relatively low paying one. However, we do get a bit of an extra reward, of course, in the form of a free parts ticket. Moving on to event number 2, we have a brand new special event in the form of the Renault Kangoo 1 make at Tsukuba Circuit. Overall, I did actually really enjoy this one. I felt like the AI were turned up just enough to provide enough challenge, and the race itself just wasn't too long to the point where it became incredibly boring. But let's head over and have a look at the finer details. It's a 4-lap sprint with 8 total vehicles. Of course, the specified car is the Renault Kangoo. First place is 40k, 24k, then 16. Main rival cars are of course a bunch of different variants of the Renault Kangoo. Car restrictions, BOP is off, garage car and car settings are allowed, and all penalties and damage are off. Let's move in to the race then. So of course we're using the Renault Kangoo here for this one. I do have it slightly tuned up to around about 400 pp and it was able to do the job just fine. One thing I did notice is that the majority of the AI are tuned for much higher top speeds. However, with Tsukuba being so small, you can make up a lot of that deficit if you're incredibly quick through the corners. Combine acceleration with weight reduction and you're probably on for a relatively easy win here. However, as mentioned, it did provide a nice enough challenge to the point where it wasn't too boring and there was always something to do, and the event didn't drag on to the point where it was just kind of really dull. So thankfully I did actually enjoy this one much more than I originally expected, and well, it's always a nice time at Tsukuba. So as you can see here, we're just going on to lap 2, we're up in P6 and we do have a few of the vans just up ahead of us. Now some of these are incredibly deceiving, some look almost completely standard, but I'm assuming underneath they're not. I would say the AI is probably running anywhere from maybe 420 to 440 pp. They do tend to be incredibly quick in a straight line, but then drop off dramatically when it comes to the corners. So again, that's where you want to be taking advantage of them. And as you can see, even though it is a van, there's plenty of room to managed to just throw it down the inside and get those positions made up. In terms of the event though, we took first place in the final few corners and would go on to take a win by just under a second. Really enjoyed this one. Let's have a look at the payout. Now, of course, when it comes to the payout, it's not going to be too much considering it's a rather short event, but it isn't too bad at 60,000 credits for a 4-lap sprint around Tsukuba. Moving on to event number 3 then. Another recent event here, this is the European FR Challenge 550 at Lake Maggiore East. Of course, it was added with update 1.56 and was made to highlight the BMW Z4. And again, this is aimed at European cars, FR drivetrain, around 550 pp, but a lot of those will not be running anywhere close to that. My car of choice was this AMG Mercedes, which is one that I've just never really used. I believe it's the C63 model. As for the car itself, it is completely stock and there are no modifications or different tuning on the tuning sheet. Let's move over to the event then. Now, it's a relatively small grid, a total of 12 cars, 11 AI up in front of you. However, this is a relatively bigger layout of Lake Maggiore and it is a 5-lap total race. So unfortunately, it does get a little bit boring very fast. A lot of the cars are just in typical groupings. It feels like a very day one event in which the whole chase the rabbit thing was probably at its worst. And unfortunately, it's no different for this one. Again, Polyphony kind of falling back into old habits here. Now, since the AI are constantly battling each other and almost constantly in pairs, you will find that the pace is incredibly slow in comparison to what it realistically should be, and that is definitely going to benefit you. Now, the main car you do need to watch out for is the Tuscan. If that TVR Tuscan spawns in your event, it is more than likely going to be the quickest car of the bunch. Even worse if it spawns at the front and ends up going and pulling a massive lead out. Thankfully for me, it got stuck behind the M2 competition there, and well, that allowed me to sneak on through at the end of lap 2 and go on to take a relatively decent gap of just over 7.5 seconds come the finish line. Overall, a relatively easy event, just depends how confident you are in the FR vehicles. As for the payout, it's not too bad. I took 60,000 credits without the clean race bonus, unfortunately. That little dive down the inside lost me that, but we do get a daily marathon, which is a 4-star and 150k on top of that for 3 events completed. Moving on then, event number 4. So we see the return of the WTC 600. This one is at Grand Valley Highway 1, and of course it's aimed at pretty much any vehicle around a 600 pp rating. And overall, I would say these are some of the toughest road going events in the entire game. Some of the cars it fields are incredibly quick. As for my car of choice, well, very obvious here, it would be the brand new Aston Martin Vantage from 2018 with a few slight tweaks and aeros added on to get me through the tight and twisty sections of Grand Valley. There's a total of 16 cars in this race, 15 AI over a 5-lap sprint race. However, just be aware that where certain cars spawn will depend on how difficult your event is. There is one specific car in this event that is much quicker than anything else, and that is the Lamborghini Huracan. That thing is incredibly quick. Most of the time you'll find the likes of the Porsches to be quite quick as well, so you may have to watch those, but the rest of the AI, they shouldn't give you too much of a problem. The best place I found to make a lot of moves in a very short period of time is just after the bridge section when you leave the tunnel. From there you've got a huge long run down all the way up to turn 1 once again, and a lot of the AI here aren't necessarily quick in a straight line. Although these are the same cars that we see at the likes of the Tokyo 600, they're just nowhere near that incredible amount of top speed, although they can be pretty handy around some of the tighter sections, so just be aware of that. So anyway, the main reason you need to worry about the Huracan is because it's 4-wheel drive and incredibly quick. Now thankfully for the majority of my race, it started in P3 and got held up by the GR Supra and the Porsche 911 GT3. They did a great job until the final stages, in which I just got onto the back of the lead pack and then it broke free and went way up the road. So unfortunately, just last minute there, losing out on a possible relatively easy win. As you can see, as we go through the final tunnel, I move into P2 and the Lamborghini at this point is around about 3 seconds up the road, and unfortunately we had to settle for P2 in the end. So this event is very luck based depending on where the AI spawns. As for the payout for this one, 55,200 credits there for second place and another 15.9 miles added on to our daily total. Let's move on to the final event, which is as always the longest of the bunch. This time it's the Group 1 prototype series at Circuit de St. Croix Layout C, which is the biggest one I believe in total. It's around about 3 minutes a lap and it's going to be an 8-lap race here with tyres and fuel enabled. Now, although it's meant to be a Group 1 event, you can use anything as long as it's under 950 pp, and I went for this, the Gran Turismo F1500. And in terms of the car itself, well, it would do a pretty decent job. In fact, it was incredibly overpowered here. Now, my strategy was to run the racing mediums to just after the halfway point, as well as fuel mix 6th after a pretty quick sprint run to just get through some of the traffic early on. Now, when it comes to the AI, the main ones you actually want to watch out for are not the LMP1 machines or the VGT machinery, it's actually the Group C. The main reason is there's a lot of very fast sections to this track, and again they have the best top speed in the category, so you'll relatively find them picking up a lot of positions, and depending when they pit will depend where they end up in the end. A lot of these slower cars can make positions up before then dropping back just due to pit stops, but overall the Group C machinery is probably the ones that are going to give you the best run for your money here. Another thing to note is of course the tyre and fuel wear rate at this event. For me, I would say it was incredibly fair, in fact sometimes kind of overly fair, if that makes sense. It didn't seem like the tyre wear was kind of going down too much, it's not overly aggressive like it is at some events, and the same with fuel usage. As long as you're keeping an eye on it, you'll absolutely be fine, and as long as you pit to cover it off, you should be absolutely golden. The only trouble you might have is if you don't keep an eye on it in terms of the fuel and you run out kind of mid-lap here, you're going to be in a big trouble because it's just such a long lap. As for me, I pitted at the end of lap 5, went for another set of racing mediums just to keep them nice and fresh. I had a huge gap anyway, and I just filled the car to full. At that point, I would then run fuel mix 1 until the final lap before I turned the engine back down and just cruised over the finish line. So for me, that was the best way to do it with the F1500. Even with this early pit stop, I managed to maintain my overall lead. In the end then, we came up across the line with over 50-second gap to P2, which funnily enough was the GR010, which had a masterclass of a strategy for staying out as long as possible. And there we go, that was first place with relative ease. As for the payout for this one, 210k without the clean race bonus. Of course, 50% on top of that if you do get it. And of course, as expected, we're going to get the free car roulette ticket on top of that for completing all 5 events. Let's move into the rewards then. So our daily marathon was a 4-star ticket. Pretty typical. I think most of us that are level 50 will get one of these every day. It's even worse when you end up with the 3-star. And of course, I'm going to get a pretty terrible reward here. 10,000 credits for this one, unfortunately, so really nothing to talk about. Let's move on to the second ticket, and that is going to be the first for one event completed, which is the parts ticket. Again, these are very hit and miss. Sometimes you'll get a very good reward for a very good car, and other times you'll get a part for a car that you'll probably never ever use. So as for me here, let's have a look what I got. As you can see, I got the Stroke Up S for the Toyota SFR. Really not very useful to me. We then have 150k for completing 3 events, and for completing all 5 we get the free car roulette ticket reward. Let's open it up and see what we get. Again, these rewards can contain some of the best possible cars in game. As for me, I had a bunch of VGTs as well as a couple of super formulas, both the Toyota and the Honda, and I'd actually end up with the SF23 Toyota super formula, which I have 0 complaints about. It sells for a decent amount, and it does kind of help towards an upcoming video I've got in the near future, so not too bad. And with that, our weekly challenges are done and dusted. A huge thank you to all of my channel members on screen now, and a huge thank you to you guys watching at home. I hope you have a fantastic start to your weekend. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.